All right, finally ready to go. 1 Corinthians 14. Oh, before I get started, if you don't think my shirt goes well with my pants, my wife didn't think so either. So I just wanted to wear this shirt because it's hot out. So.
You'll be fine behind the pulpit.
Oh. Yeah. Anyhow. Just so you don't blame my wife for the way I dress, it's my fault that I got this shirt on. So. All right, 1 Corinthians chapter 14. Last week we went through chapter 13, and he put charity above everything. If you can move mountains, if you can do extraordinary things, says it doesn't really mean anything if you don't have charity. Telling you what, it's where it's at. There's no gift, there's no power in this life that we can experience that is superior to love, charity. Love it brings action. It actually makes someone. It helps us. Like you can't have love and not make a difference. Love does make a difference. It's what love does. Otherwise, it wouldn't be love, right? You see, God is love, and that love, what was the response of him being, or the fruit of his love? He died for us. If he was just up there practicing his fancy gifts, yeah, it's good for the people there, but love in action is amazing. So we say love in action. But is it love when there is no action? Something to think about. I think if there's genuine love of Christ, and for the brethren, for the brothers and sisters here, you're going to see it. That's how we can go into different fellowships and figure out whether something's legit or not. Is there actually the love of God there, or are they? You can tell by what's going on based on what? Love, right? Is there true love of God? Is it genuine? Or what is it about? You can tell very quickly, and love is usually the gauge that you can gauge what is real. Even looking for a spouse, love is like right up there. Like you can just gauge a lot of things by love. Love is not about you, it's about another person. And do you have love? Unconditional love. Love is not conditional, not the love of God. After he got done explaining the entire chapter about love, charity, he goes in chapter 14 again, which in chapter 12 he talked about all the gifts. And then in 13, he chimps in and says, you know what, there's nothing like love. But then in chapter 14, he goes back to talking about some of the gifts again. And then but he starts out saying, verse 1, follow after charity. Desire, and he says, and desire spiritual gifts, but rather that you may prophesy. So he's not backing down with the idea of charity and the love of God, but desire spiritual gifts, and rather you prophesy. What is prophesying? Isn't it speaking about the things that are to come? Some of prophecy, I believe, is talking about like reading the book of Revelation. That's the word of prophecy. And there's also a gift of prophecy where God supernaturally shows you what's going to come next. I'd love to have that. I desire it. I've desired it for probably 12 years. Pretty much since I was saved. But I wouldn't say I got it. I want it. And he tells us to desire it. I don't know of a greater way to minister than to have the gift of prophecy, where you can see ahead what's about to come. Or you can read a person and say, this guy's going to go do this because God supernaturally told you, hey, that guy's bad news. or good news or whatever. Prophecy, word of prophecy, knowledge would be such a great way to minister. There's a lot of people that are in trouble, that are hurting. And if I would have, and there's no way for me to know unless they tell me, right? Unless I have the gift of prophecy. Spiritual gifts where God reveals things to me that no other way I would know. So he tells us to desire spiritual gifts after we figured out charity. And rather that you may prophesy. For he that speaketh in an unknown tongue speaketh not unto men, but unto God. For no man understandeth him, howbeit in the Spirit he speaketh mysteries. But he that prophesieth speaketh unto men to edification and exhortation and comfort. So it's like prophecy is better than speaking in tongues that no one can understand. It says if you want to speak in tongues, like kind of keep it to yourself unless you can talk and explain it, what you're saying. But if you want to speak in tongues, it's like a prayer. You could do it in the closet. And I think you should do that. Like if you got the gift of speaking in tongues, then go at it in the closet. Or if you do it in public, explain it. Because the problem that he's running into in this chapter is that there's a chaos in the church because of all the supposedly gifts that they're practicing. And he's going to spell it out pretty clearly here, how it should work. Where were we? Verse 3. But he that prophesieth speaketh unto men to edification and exhortation and comfort. He that speaketh in an unknown tongue edifieth himself, but he that prophesieth edifieth the church. So that's the difference there, huh? So when we're together, it's not about edifying ourselves. It's about edifying the church. How cool is that? That's the issue that Paul is having with these people that are blabbering away in tongues. Nobody can understand what they're saying. There's just this ruckus in the church, but they all think that the Holy Spirit is here. Oh, look at all the gifts. So what is trying to edify the body is the excitement of all the gifts. But anybody that's not ignorant or a fool will realize that that's not true edification. It's fleshly. It's outward. It's feeling. It's a feeling. But he says prophesying cuts to the heart of issues. A lot of times prophets will say something bad that's going to happen, like an exhortation, he said, or something good, which is a comfort. Either way, it turns out to be a comfort. If I'm going down the wrong road, and then supernaturally God somehow shows someone, hey, go tell Andrew he's on a bad road, exhort him, that would still bring me comfort, right? To know that God is supernaturally looking out after me. So prophesying is much better in Paul's argument here and edifying to the church than someone speaking in tongues that nobody can understand. Nevertheless, he's going to confirm that speaking in tongues and praying to God in the Spirit is a good thing and to not forbid it. But right now he's contrasting which gift is more important, and by far prophesying is better. Why? Because it edifies the church and not just he himself. I would that ye all spake with tongues, but rather that ye prophesy, in verse 5. For greater is he that prophesieth than he that speaketh with tongues, except he interpret, that the church may receive edifying. You see, if you're going to speak in tongues, then explain it. Don't be there speaking some kind of language that nobody understands but you. And maybe you don't even understand it, then you're just being an idiot. Verse 6, Now, brethren, if I come unto you, speaking with tongues, what shall I profit you? Except I shall speak to you either by revelation, or by knowledge, or by prophesying, or by doctrine. Asking a question. There's a question mark there. And even things without life-giving sound, whether pipe or harp, except they give a distinction in the sounds, how shall it be known what is piped or harped? That's just very basic common sense. If somebody is blabbering, but we don't understand what he's blabbering, there's no distinction of sound where we can interpret what he's saying, that would be like a sound instrument that you can't hear. You can't hear it. Or it doesn't have any distinct sound. You can't make out what it's trying to play. So that's when you close your ears and you walk out. Like, you would just leave, right? It's not edifying. Doesn't mean anything. It's just a bunch of noise. In fact, very annoying noise. You just walk out. I'll go home, read the Bible. Then he says in verse 8, for if the trumpet giveth an uncertain sound, who shall prepare himself to the battle? If the trumpet didn't have a significant, distinct sounds that sent a message that you can understand, you would never know when you're supposed to get ready to go to battle. Because they used to sound the trumpet with certain distinct sounds that every soldier knew, okay, it's time for me to pick up my weapons. Because in any second, when that trumpet makes a certain sound, I'm going to charge forward and I'm going to go fight. Well, if you don't know what the trumpet's saying, you don't know when to pick up your weapons and go. He's telling us this is exactly what it's like when someone is speaking in tongues in church and nobody knows what they're saying. It's ridiculous. So, then he says in verse 9, so likewise ye except you utter by the tongue words easy, look at that, easy to be understood. How shall it be known what is spoken? For ye shall speak into the air. The only thing that's happening when you're making these weird sounds is that you're filling the air up with some weird noise. That's all that's happening. I think Paul's being a little funny here. And that's pretty basic. There are, in verse 10, it may be so many kinds of voices in the world, and none of them is without signification. Therefore, if I know not the meaning of the voice, I shall be unto him that speaketh a barbarian. Now, I was going to look up barbarian. I really wonder what that is. Does anybody know what barbarian is? Shoot. It's got to be funny. It just has to be funny.
Wild, untamed man or people group. You know, like the
That's what I
English would have called the Indians barbarians because they lived,
There was no order, there was nothing, it was all chaos.
Yeah.
Crazy. Basically a nut. Yeah. All right. Shall be a barbarian unto me. Even so, ye, for as much as ye are zealous of spiritual gifts, see that ye may excel to the edifying of the church. How many times has he now said, instead of trying to edify yourself, the edifying of the church? I think this is the second or third time he said that. That's the point. When we come together, I hope that you are either challenged, exhorted, or edified, or comforted by words that you heard from God. And I'll just say this. The excitement and the build-up that is surrounded in the charismatic movements where the people are all dancing and jumping and all that, they think that was, like, to them, that's the power of God moving, and it was glorious, and they got chicken skin, there's goosebumps, they're just going crazy, and they just think this is unbelievably awesome, and God moved. But then Monday comes around, and what happens? Why in the charismatic movements where there's all these gifts, divorce rate is sky high? If that was the move of God and we would translate over into your everyday life, then you'd be the most godly people I'd be around. Now that would edify me, and I would want to know what you're talking about. I want to know that language, and I want to know what you're saying, and I want to be a part of that. Because what you're doing, the way you're lit up, and the way you're excited about God, I want that. But beside all that, you know what's the most edifying thing that anybody can tell me? There's nothing more edifying to me than to get down to the nitty-gritty of what makes me right with God. I don't know of anything that's more edifying than that. Knowing that when Christ died, I died, and by me dying, God put off the old man, all the sins of the flesh, buried them in the sea, and made me righteous with God. That edifies me. That lifts me up from within. There's no dance, there's no speaking in tongues, there's no miracle that edifies me more than that. And do you know that most of the people that have all these gifts, they don't believe in that word. They don't believe that you were one time sanctified, set apart, once, redeemed, renewed, seated in heavenly places, completely healed, transformed by the power of God. They don't believe it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trying to do it every day. You want to be edified? Understand the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That is where it gets down to the real problem and the real solution to our problems. Sin has been dealt with. That's edifying. And when we come together, we need to talk about what God has done on our behalf and edify and comfort and exhort each other to walk in that light and that love. Charity, again, is on the top. Verse 12, even so ye, for as much as ye are zealous of spiritual gifts, seek that ye may excel to the edifying of the church. Wherefore let him that speaketh in an unknown tongue pray that he may interpret. If you're going to do this whole tongue thing in church, then you better have an interpretation. Now I've heard of stories where they did and it was powerful. Good. I'll embrace it. I'm here ready to listen. But I'm not going to, if I hear a bunch of blabbering and a bunch of people speaking in tongues and women. Now, I hope you're judging me right now for saying that, because there's a verse going to say something that's going to make you go, oh, when we read a little bit further. But when there's a bunch of women blabbering in church in tongues, I'm walking out. I'm leaving for a good reason. Chaos. Verse 13 again, an unknown praying, pray that he may interpret. For if I pray in an unknown tongue, my spirit prayeth, but my understanding is what? Unfruitful. So, what's the point of praying in an unknown tongue if it's unfruitful? Your understanding is unfruitful. What is it then? I will pray with the Spirit and will pray with the understanding also. I will sing with the Spirit and I will sing with the understanding also. There we go. Let's do it together. Let's have spiritual wisdom, spiritual understanding, spiritual prophesying with understanding. Sounds very basic to me. Doesn't sound like we're trying to discard spiritual gifts. It's just common sense. Needs to edify the church. Verse 16, else, when thou shalt bless with the Spirit, how shall he that occupieth the room of the unlearned say amen? At the giving of thanks, seeing he understandeth not what thou sayest. You're saying some wonderful things about the goodness and the glory of God, but the people that are occupying the room, they didn't know what you said, so they can't say amen. So it's idiot. Like it would be like ignorant to do that. Just really dumb, barbarian, pointless. Verse 17, for thou verily giveth thanks. Well, in fact, you're doing a really good job giving thanks. You're doing it well. But the other is not edified. You can tell me the thing that I just said that edifies me more than anything else, and that is talking about what takes away the problem that separates me from God. You talk to me about that, that's what builds me up and edifies me and gives me hope. But you can tell me that in a language and in a voice that I don't understand, and it won't do anything for me. I'll be like, I don't know what you said. I'm still feel the same. I'm not encouraged, I'm not edified, I'm not lifted up. Why? Because I don't understand what you said. Even though you said a very good thing very well, I still don't know what you said, so it doesn't help me any. Isn't it amazing how Paul is trying to go explain this over and over and over? How many times have we now said the same thing? But we're still in verse 17. Verse 18, I thank my God I speak with tongues more than you all. This tongue thing, I know languages I know way more languages than you do. Yet, in the church, I had rather speak, what? 5 words with my understanding, even that he understands, 5 words with my understanding that by my voice I might teach others also, then what? 10,000 words in an unknown tongue. 5 words that you can understand is more important than 10,000 words that are true, that are well said, that are speaking about the glory of God. But if you can't understand 10,000 words, it's better for you to understand 5. Boy, I bet if we would apply this in some of these charismatic churches, all of a sudden it would get really quiet. Guess what they would say then? Oh, the church is dead. I only heard 5 words I understood the whole day. It was dead and boring. Man, that just kind of lifting that lid off of that whole thing, and it's pretty eerie, right? It's like dead, awful. You remove all the spiel, and you look down, it's like, okay, how many words were spoken with understanding? 5. Paul says, God says, that's better. He says it's better 5 words to be understood than 10,000 that you can't understand. You see, why do we fall for this? Because we're living by faith, believing a promise that seems so hard to believe. Why? Because we're still here in this body, and we're challenged to believe that we're not, but yet then we deal with this thing every day of our lives. Things come into our brain, corrupt things. We're constantly fighting darkness. So then someone shows up and says, oh, you need the glory and the power of God on your life. What's missing in your life is the supernatural powers and gifts. And you go, yeah, that's exactly what's missing. Come on, bring it on. But then we fall for it, and we go for it, and we stop believing the finished work that quick. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves in a deeper hole than ever before. And it's not good. So we just keep playing the harlot in these church prostituting rings, I call, of this prosperity, like supernatural, charismatic movements that don't transform people's lives from within the heart, where they're not transformed by believing the gospel of the resurrection from the dead. They don't believe it. You can't believe that you're delivered while you're trying to be delivered. Can't do both. It's impossible to believe that Jesus Christ has made you a new creature and you're constantly trying to be clean. It's impossible to believe that Jesus Christ triumphed over every principality and every power, and you're turning over every rock to see if there's a demon under it. There is no such thing. You can't believe both. So what's edifying to me? To know that my God, my Savior, has triumphed over every principality and power, raised me from the dead, seated me in heavenly places. I'm good with that. That is edifying. You can jump and dance about your gifts and about all the things that God hasn't done yet. Doesn't excite me. What excites me is the finished work of Christ. All right, let's continue. Verse 19. Yet in the church I had rather speak 5 words with my understanding than by 10,000 with no understanding. Verse 20. Brethren, be not children in understanding, howbeit in malice be ye children, but in understanding be men. In the law it is written, with men of other tongues and other lips will I speak unto this people, and yet for all that will they not hear me, saith the Lord. Wherefore tongues are for a sign, listen to this, not to them that believe, but to them that believe not. So where do signs come in? To all the people that were there in the upper room. There were 30 different types of tongues. There are different nations with different languages. And when God spoke through Peter or the prophets there, like Peter and I forget who the other guy was there. And when they spoke, these 30 different countries heard him speak in their own language. That's a sign that did what? Those unbelievers that were sitting there said, God moved. And how many? I think it was 3,000 souls came to God that day. I might have that mixed up. But it's interesting to me that he says that these gifts and these tongues are not for the believers, but it's for a sign for the unbelievers. So, to me, Let's say I run into a Muslim, he doesn't know one word of English. And all of a sudden, I'm just reading this old English Bible and he hears Arabic. It's clear as day. And he hears the wonderful works of God. And he repents and he turns to God. That was a gift of the Spirit and tongues that edified and helped an unbeliever. Not the believer, but the unbeliever. How cool is that? So that should clear up a lot of nonsense, right? All right, where are we? Verse 23. If therefore the whole church be come together into one place, and all speak with tongues, and there come in those that are unlearned and unbelievers, will they not say that ye are mad? Of course they will. But all prophecy, and there come in one that believeth not, or one unlearned, he is convinced of all, he is judged of all. Let me read that again. I think I misread this. Verse 23. If therefore the whole church be come together into one place, and all speak with tongues, and there come in those that are unlearned and unbelievers, will they not say that ye are mad? But if all prophesy, and there come in one that believeth not, or one unlearned, he is convinced of all, he is judged of all. So again, he's saying, if you're all speaking in tongues together, and an unbeliever walks in, or an unlearned person walks into that church, he's going to say, these people are mad. They're ridiculous. But if they walk in, and somebody is prophesying about what's to come, or what has come, or maybe exposes him, then he's judged. He's convinced, and he's judged of all. It's going to minister. Yeah.
The second half of 22, that would explain that better.
Oh, I forgot to read the second half. Let's start verse 22 then. Wherefore tongues are for a sign, not to them that believe, but to them that believe not. But prophesying serveth not for them that believe not, but them which believe. Okay. If therefore the whole church be come together into one place, all speak with tongues, and there come in those that are unlearned and unbelievers, will they not say that they're mad? Yeah. But if all prophesy, and there come in one that believeth not, or unlearned, he is convinced of all, he is judged of all. All right, verse 25. And thus are the secrets of his heart made manifest. That's what a good prophet does. When a sinner walks in, an unbeliever, an unlearned person walks in, and you can supernaturally this is why I want this gift. Wouldn't that be fun? If I could just tell somebody how bad they are. I'm kidding. But no, it does convert people because like, man, I can't hide. Well, the truth is we can hide. God knows everything we've ever done. And he can just tell a prophet, look, this guy, this is his past. And I've heard of a lot of people that have come to God because some minister did tell them some of their past. And it was something like, you know, you went through a hard time. You lost your father 2 years ago. You lost your mother, whatever. Like they can tell all the bad things that have happened in their life. And all of a sudden they go, somebody knows, somebody cares, like God cares, and then they give their life to God. That would be awesome. And that's why we should all desire the gift of prophesying. It's happening around here in a very small scale, but I wouldn't say that we really have the gift of prophesying around here that much. Continuing verse 25, and so falling down on his face, he will worship God and report that God is in you of a truth. That's the effect of prophesying. 26. How is it then, brethren, when you come together, every one of you hath a psalm, hath a doctrine, hath a tongue, hath a revelation, hath an interpretation. Let all things be done unto what? Again, edifying. It has to minister and edify. I like this. This is what I've been trying to say so many times. If we all came, which we all come with something, right? But if we'd be a little bit more intentional of coming with a song, or a word, or a doctrine, or an exhortation, or a smile, or just praying. Very intentional about our Christian life and our Christian walk. And we came together like that, It's going to make a difference. The edification is going to be greater than when we just come just in here cold, not our mind renewed, or haven't spent time praying, or haven't kind of sharpened up, or sought out God for a word, or just to bring, like, what does God want to do today? Like, what's going to be the edification today? Maybe it is just a smile. Great, I like smile, happy, free people. That's great. But I think there's more to it. Obviously, he says, when you come together, brethren, every one of you hath what? A psalm, a doctrine, a tongue, hath a revelation, hath an interpretation. Let all things be done to the edifying. If any man speak in an unknown tongue, let it be by two, or at the most by three, and that by course, and let one interpret. In other words, it has to be by course, in order. You can't just all start blabbering. It doesn't work that way, he says. Nobody's going to get edified. He's going to give some clear, distinct direction here. But if there be no interpreter, let him keep what? Silence in the church. And let him speak to himself and to God. I agree with that. And in verse 29, let the prophet speak 2 or 3, and let the other judge. So even the prophets, the gift that we should all desire, the gift that I want, should be judged and confirmed by other prophets. You're not just winging it up there on your own. It needs to be kind of a little bit like the Constitution, like the Declaration of Independence that Art read to us yesterday. There's clause in place, supposedly, that the government shouldn't be able to overrun its people ever again. Obviously, it's not working. But that's the idea. Christianity is similar here. He's saying these gifts need to be confirmed and backed up by other believers. You can't just wing it and say, oh, God moves, It doesn't work that way. There needs to be confirmation. There needs to be interpretation. It needs to be explained. It needs to be held accountable. You can't just go out winging it and thinking that, oh, somehow God moved while you're making these crazy, outlandish things that you're saying that are not, not backed up. I think a lot of people would not prophesy in today's world if they knew there was another prophet that has the same information that's going to confirm or deny. It's going to actually judge his prophecy. Let the prophet speak 2 or 3, and let the other judge. If anything, actually the other judge might be the people judge. I don't know for sure. Verse 30, if anything be revealed to another that sitteth by, let the first hold his peace. One starts going and prophesying, and all of a sudden another one that's just sitting by hey, God just told me something. That guy's supposed to shut up and let the new guy speak. What about that? I thought we were all supposed to shut up and listen, put our head in the sand, right? Verse 31, for ye may all prophesy one by one, that all may what? Learn, and all may be comforted. Again, it's about everybody benefiting in learning and being comforted. In verse 32, and the spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets. You see, there's an accountability there. For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as is in all churches of the saints. Here's the verse. Let your women keep silence in the churches, for it is not permitted unto them to speak, but that they are commanded to be under obedience, as also saith the law. Not only is that a little comical, and I maybe a little bit of an inappropriate joke about it, but I find it interesting that in these charismatic movements, a lot of the Pentecostal churches you visit, the men are sitting there like, and the wife's up there, she's all crazy, and the man is like, oh, you can tell it's just like, and some of the men are like, oh, she's so spiritual and whatever. I was working with logging with this one guy. He's a truck driver. And he basically worshipped his wife. He came from like the old hillbilly down in the hills, just, a drunk, pick up girls, you know, just a whole sinful, I call it redneck, but redneck doesn't mean the same thing in other states. So I don't know if that's the right thing, but to the Ohio, to me, it's like this hillbilly redneck that has a bunch of guns and a beer and women, not committed to anything. He gets gloriously saved, and this woman had a part in it, and they end up getting married, and she leads the worship services, and he said the whole, when she starts singing, it's just like the Spirit of God just comes over the whole room, and it just moves everybody. And I didn't talk to him for about a year, and all of a sudden I get him, he goes like, how you been doing? And I called him, we talked. Yeah, my wife, she left me and she's getting married to the one of the pastors. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. He said, yep, that's what happened. Isn't that crazy? That's just wild. So again, I will say, if these gifts were the thing that I'm lacking to not walk in righteousness, then why doesn't it work? Like if she has these gifts of tongues and all these miracles and signs and wonders, but she can't do the simple charity thing as like loving a husband that is completely committed to you because he's come from such a bad, horrible, uncommitted, ungodly life, and he's now just like, you are just everything, and you will betray that and go chase down some Sunday school teacher. That tells me that the power and the victory is not in signs and gifts and wonders. In fact, it's not even to the believers. He just said it's not to the believers. It's not for us, the tongues. So, again, what delivers us? God dying and rising again. That's what delivers us. That's what edifies me. Let your women keep silence in the churches, for it is not permitted for them to speak, but that they be commanded to be under obedience, as also saith the law. And if they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is a shame for a woman to speak in the church. Very controversial, right? What? Came the word of God out from you, or came it unto you, or came it unto you only? If any man think himself to be a prophet or spiritual, let him acknowledge that the things that I write unto you are the commandments of the Lord. But if any man be ignorant, let him be ignorant. Wherefore, brethren, covet to prophesy, and forbid not to speak with tongues. Listen to that. Don't forbid to speak with tongues. But again, he's circling back around. If you want a gift, prophesying is the thing. Then he says, let all things be done decently and in order. I don't know that we did that chapter much justice, but if you feel like there's things lacking, you can speak up now or read it when you get home. And like, I tried to just take it verse by verse and just say exactly what he's trying to say. And in spite of what we might disagree with or not, I think that's what God was saying. So I'm going to leave it at that.